You speak to stadiums and arenas globally. What's been the biggest shift in how venues think about technology over the past few years?
So yeah, it's a good question. The probably the biggest shift I've seen the last few years for stadiums and arenas when it comes to using technology is well, there's a couple of things. Firstly, it's how they use it, um, and and that's been driven largely by a shift in the way that their event mixes come together, because now there's a lot more events being done that are not sporting events or concerts or the traditional events that those types of venues would have, and they're doing a lot more private events, and so they're using technology more to manage those from a almost like a meeting planner's perspective. So the other aspect of the way that I think the way that stadiums and arenas has changed the way they're using technology is just the change in technology itself, because now there's so many more things that are going on with technology like AI, and AR or augmented reality, those sort of things. So now we're seeing venues starting to want to use those aspects to give a better experience for the people attending.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the venue is now part of the experience, and the technology is driving that. So what I mean by that is when I come to a stadium or arena, I'm not just going to watch the event that's going on there itself. I want other things to stimulate me. And so there might be some, like I say, some augmented reality activations or something that are going on for a sponsor that I'm seeing through my phone or through some AR glasses, or the stats of a player coming up on on the screen in front of me, those sort of things. And then of course with AI, that's really changing the game with the way that people expect more information quickly. So yeah, lots going on there.
What are the most common operational challenges you're hearing from stadiums and arenas at the moment?
Yeah, the common challenges that we see, and it's the same. It's interesting. It's kind of the same the world over. It's not even geographically different. Um, there's several things that crop up that are issues. One of them is staffing, and I think that's been an ongoing issue, particularly since COVID, where venues are finding it hard now to keep staff or get experienced staff. So there's been a lot of a shift since then, and so that's meant it's been tougher to provide the same experiences and the level of service. So that's a big one. But also um, just meeting the growing demands of the audience. That's a challenge in the way that we operate. Like again, we can't do things the same way that we were doing them 10, 15 years ago, because the audience expectations have changed, where they're coming in now with a number of expectations based on what they do in their everyday lives. So what I mean by that is think of like now a person goes to somewhere like the Sphere in Las Vegas, and the venue itself is actually more of the experience than the event that's going on in it. And so people don't say, "Oh, I went to Vegas to see U2." They say, "I went to Vegas to go to the Sphere, and I happened to see U2 playing there."
Yeah.
So that's really changed the mindset, and I think that's a real challenge. As people are experiencing that, then they're expecting more from other venues, and there's also another good example of that is the COSM venues in the US, which are basically sports bars on steroids,
Mm,
where you feel like you're sitting on the sideline of an event when you're
yeah.
watching in the case of a sporting event, but you're literally just still in a sports bar, and
Yeah.
so it's almost like you're there but you're not, and so it's about as close as the replicating the live experience can get. And so that's a challenge for again venues to operationally to think, well, how do we compete against that? How do we
Yeah.
still get that fan experience? And that's where we've got to do more than what we're doing, which is just providing that venue for people to come and expect them to have an experience. We've got to help make that a part of it.
You
So this is
mentioned before that many venues use systems like Momentous as only use systems like Momentous as a calendar and not
Mhm,
utilizing the other tools. Is
mhm.
that a problem, and why?
Yeah, I think it's a problem for all technologies in general. Like even if we take it back to everyone, even the everyday person, using Microsoft Word or Excel, we only use 5% of it, if that, right? We don't use near enough of the power, and very much the same applies to systems like Momentus, which is so powerful, yet many of the stadiums and arenas will just use it for a glorified booking calendar, which is one of the most basic of the functions it can do.
Yeah.
And so the challenge there becomes back on companies like ourselves, where we need to actually make sure that the venue operators can understand what it can do, and then make it easy so that the teams will use it. Because typically it's the sales team and that they're using the calendar. The hardest teams to get to adopt technology like Momentous is more of the operational teams. And
Yeah.
so, the teams that set things up and do all the logistics. So how do we make things easier for them? And I think that's where things like smartphones come into play, where instead of trying to say to them, hey, you've got to go back to a computer and update an order or get your orders from there, let them do that from their phones. Let them be able to, be running around and do that. The easier we can make this sort of stuff, the better. Even if we can make it voice activated, where
Yeah.
they're closing off a work order, they've just set up a room, be able to speak into the phone and say close order 1, 2, 3, instead of having to go back to a computer to do that. Those are the sort of things that will make the adoption better. But it's up to, as I say, it's up to the technology companies to drive that.
Yeah. Do you do like any sort of like educational workshops or anything with venues, and like do you revisit them and stay in contact with them?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and something that sometimes some providers tend to do a bit of a sell the system and then forget a bit about it. But no, we've made a conscious effort to. We have several things. One of them is like a wellness program for some of our clients who will, after a period of time, they might want to just have our team check in and see how they're doing. And that'll, we can do a little bit of an audit, if you like, of how they're using the system and suggest but better ways for them to use it. That's more of a formal thing, but just as an ongoing thing, we also assign customer success managers to these accounts, so they check in with them regularly just to make sure that they're doing things. And we have client conferences every year, and the idea is that the clients come along to those to be educated on some of the things that the system can do, but also to talk to their peers and others about how they're using the systems, because there's nothing better in my mind that when you've got a collection of clients together and someone says, oh, I've got this problem, I haven't been able to work out how to do this, and then someone else who's using the system says, well, actually we've done this and here's how we did it, and they help each other out. So that's really, really great.
Yeah, no, definitely really important. So who typically benefits the most from using Momentus?
The idea of Momentus is that it's designed so that everybody in the organization is going to have a central repository of information. So it becomes that system of record, that system of truth, if you like. So in our ideal world, everybody in the venue is going to benefit because they all have access. There's no point if just the sales team are accessing the system, then finance aren't going to benefit because they're not seeing anything from that. So the more people that can access it, the better. And that's why it's designed to be this all-encompassing system, so that information flows from the booking through to the sales to the event management through to finance, so that that we get rid of that separate point solutions that are not talking to each other and are independent. This way all the information's in one spot, so it gets entered once and everybody benefits from that.
Risk obviously is like a growing concern, especially in stadiums. How are venues thinking about it today, and how do you think technology helps with that?
Yeah, look, risk is whether we like it or not, it's becoming more and more of a topic. As we see, venues are a pretty significant target for all sorts of things, whether it be a terrorist attack or some sort of incident, and so it's really important to be able to manage that risk ahead of time. And so
Yeah.
what we are seeing that a lot more venues are adopting, for example, our risk management capabilities in the software where they can say, well, hey, I'm putting this event together, and there might be a few questions like, what's the type of audience that'll be there? What's the demographic of that? Is it an indoor outdoor event? Is it if it's a concert, what type of music or genre of music is it? All these sort of things and they'll have a score on them that the venue can ascertain, and that will then produce a risk profile, whether it's low, medium, or high. And if it's in the medium or high range, then they might decide to do a risk assessment, and that's where they assign all the potential risks that could happen, and then all the mitigations they could need to put, the controls they need to put in place to mitigate that risk, and who's responsible to put them in place. And the more of that they can do, the better prepared they're going to be for if the case scenario happens, and they've got to stand up in a court to after let's say, God forbid, the worst case happens and there's a fatality or something. At least they can say, well, look, here's all the steps we took to make sure that we were managing that, so that we were mitigating the risk as much as possible.
So what's actually relevant for stadiums while using AI at the moment? Because obviously it's so rapidly developing, but like, what do you think the actual use for stadiums and venues are?
Yeah, it's I get this question all the time because again, we're a service first industry, right? Our job in the venues is to create a safe environment for people to come and make their memories. Then but everybody's obviously thinking about AI, and they're like, well, what does that mean to us? And so again, the responsibility is back on us as a technology provider to lead the way with that. And what we've been doing is really focusing on what areas could we really use AI to give really meaningful results. And so the first area we focused on was we know in all types of venues that one of the biggest bottlenecks with technology is reporting. And so the manager wants a report today and he wants a different one tomorrow. Someone's got to go and write that report, and it might take them time or whatever, and creates this bottleneck. Well, we created this thing called Ask Momentus or Ask Mo. And so now with natural language queries, you could say, hey, can you query the database and give me the upcoming schedule for the next 6 months for this certain type of event, and I want to know what the revenues forecast for that, et cetera, et cetera. And you can just say that or type that in, and it will give you those results graphically and visually, so you don't have to have someone write a report. And that was really the first iteration, but now we're actually developing agents specifically for the venues, so to help first of all, to help the sales team as they come into work, sort through all of their emails and look at those, and if there's leads in those emails, take them to the top of the box and say, well, hey, you've got 200 emails coming today or this morning, but here's the ones you should be focused on to start with this morning, because these are the ones that have got the most priority in terms of potential business. Sorting those, looking at things that have come in from existing customers, and maybe look, there's some duplicates there that you can it'll merge records together. So really designed to streamline that flow of how the salesperson manages their day-to-day tasks, and the intention of that is so they can get proposals out quicker, because we all know that the quicker the proposal gets out, the more likely you're going to win the business. So these agents are really designed to do that, and we've started with sales, and we're moving that to events, and then next will be finance. So I'm actually speaking tomorrow at an event about how to build an agent for a venue. So
wow, that's really interesting.
It can be just as simple as putting information that's important to everyone in the venue, like their safety and security procedures, their staff policies, their event schedule, how to just link those together so that anybody can be running around and go to their phone and find out information instantly, instead of having to go back to their desk, knowing that there's policy somewhere, but having it all linked together so it's accessible via AI.
What are the biggest opportunities and risks then concerning AI in this space? Because obviously people will be concerned about using it. So are there any risks associated with it? Or if it's an internal system like Momentous, like, is any of that risk mitigated? And can you just walk me through that?
Yeah, no, it's a very valid thing, because that's the first thing we get asked, and I think it's one of the reasons, and maybe it's an excuse, but it's certainly a reason why a lot of venues are apprehensive about adopting AI, because their first thing is, oh, well, we don't want to put all our information out there and have everybody have access to it. And the simple answer to that is that when you're using someone like Momentous, that's our responsibility to look after that. So we've been very, very thorough in making sure that anything we're doing with AI The data is very much protected. There won't be anything going in the public domain that shouldn't be going in there. And that's to give the peace of mind to the venue, so they can feel happy about moving forward with using these sort of tools to help them. The other risk, though, is there's several risks, but another risk for them is there's a bit of a fear of the unknown, and so the risk I see with that is that, again, our industry is not very tech first, so we sort of sit back and wait till other industries adopt these sort of things, and then we eventually jump on the bandwagon when it's becomes mainstream. But like we were talking about earlier, with all these other options coming out for the experiential dollar, if we don't adopt some of this and we sit back, then we do run a risk of people, like you said before, not coming to the venues and consuming the information another way, because technology is helping them to do that. So there is a risk of doing nothing. And that's going to be harmful to us as an industry. So I think so we want to, again, we've got to help educate the industry so they understand that it's not as scary as you might be led to believe. Trust the providers are going to help you with that.
So what advice would you give to venues that are hesitant to adopt new technology?
I would just say it's okay to be wary, but ask your vendors the questions about that, and have them tell you how they've made it secure and safe, and what they're doing, and why there's benefits to it. Because again, if we run the risk, if we don't do anything and we just say, oh no, that's not for me, what we do, we've been doing for the same way for 100 years and it works. AI is going to change that. AI is, to me, like another evolution of the workplace and of everything in the workplace, and the way we consume everything. When the internet came out, it changed the way we thought about things. When smartphones came out, they changed the way we thought about things. And I put AI in that same bucket. Now it's the next evolution of that. And so if we don't adopt, then we run a real risk of being disrupted. Think about the taxi industry not adopting technology and thinking, oh, we don't need to do that, where taxis will always be needed. Well, Uber come along and massively changed that because they were using technology. So we have to be open to it. We don't have to go be the first and go full on and use every tool that's out there, but we have to be open to it and think about how is it going to benefit the experience for the people coming to the events, and how is it going to benefit us as a operation and inside the venue to use these tools. And so it's going to change job descriptions. There's no question. I always get asked, is AI going to take the job of a person in a venue? Well, the answer I always say is no, it's not. But a person who understands AI better is going to take the job of the person who doesn't use AI. And so the job itself is going to change based on the way AI is going to change the way we do things, but it's still going to need humans there, and we still need that human interaction. You can't, and I think that's very apparent especially in our venue world. We need that human touch, and the humans need to be guiding what's going on, but we have to be using these tools to help do that.
And where are you seeing leaders now actually get involved in AI?
The ones who are the venues and the leaders who are going to win or create a better experience are the ones who are willing to adopt. Again, you don't have to be jumping out there first and just grabbing every single tool out there, but they're the ones with the open minds who are ready to and willing to take that plunge and be part of this brave new world, if you like. Because if you're not doing it, you're going to be following. You've got to, if you want to win, you've got to be leading, right? And there's so much change going on with this. It's across every single industry, and we don't want to be the industry lagging. So yeah, if we can work together with the technology companies and the venue operators, and we can find this path forward that's going to create meaningful impressions for the attendees at the events, and that's going to be where we win.
Have you seen anyone in particular who has already started adopting this?
Yeah, it's funny. I talk a fair bit about AI at different events around the world, and one of the questions I ask to the first off usually is, who in the room here thinks that they're all over AI and using it really well? And no one's hand in the room goes up.
That's interesting.
You know, yeah, because and then when I say who's using AI, everybody's hand goes up. But then when who's using it and think that they've got this solved, then no one's hand goes up, because the reality is what most people are doing right now is they're using AI to help them write their emails or to do a marketing post, the real basic of basics, right? And so no, I haven't seen any venues yet that are really diving big time into AI use. There's some pretty
Yeah.
cool technology going on in venues, but yeah, I would have to say that it's not happening yet. But ask me that question in even 3 or 6 months' time, I think it'll be different.
Is there one thing then you should be doing right now to sort of future-proof that operations, and what would it be?
Yeah, look, I think what we've got to do right now is again be open. Do your research, find out, talk to different companies, find out what's hype and what's real, and try to understand what it is that your audience will be looking for, and then start to focus on those things. And there's two parts to it, right? There's the part of what's going to help and enhance the experience of the people coming to the venue, and what's going to help you internally with your own team, in terms of how can you make your operations more efficient, how can you increase revenues, or whatever it might be that you want to do. How is AI going to help you with those things? And I think at the moment, because it's so new, well, I mean, it's been around for a long time, but it's new in the sense that now it's mainstream, where, yesterday I was trying to show my 82-year-old mother how to use ChatGPT, and she was it blew her mind that this thing even exists. So
Yeah.
that's why I know it's mainstream, when someone like who's that old is asking me about what is this AI thing. So
Yeah, that is mind-blowing.
it is, but understanding that we're at the very early stages, and don't think of AI as a piece of software. Don't think of it as it's an app that I've got to download and install. Think of it as it's going to be all encompassing in everything we do. Think of it as it's just like if I'm thinking about writing an email, can AI help me with that? If I'm thinking about having a conversation with a client, can AI help me with that? If I'm thinking about going to an event, how can AI help me with that? I'm thinking about how I can answer a guest question. Can AI help me with that? So you've got to think about everything that you do and think about AI with that, because it's going to become part of everything. And it's more all encompassing than just being a standalone app that oh yeah, we've got to check that box, we've got AI.
I agree. Like, it is really interesting. But yeah, I guess that's all for now. Thank you very much for your time. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Okay. Thanks. See you later. Bye-bye.